Dr. Florizone, who's on the campus and is spearheading this idea of having a development partnership at the university, wrote an article in the Star Phoenix on the 19th of November in which he says, amongst other things, the Federal Medical Isotope Panel report expected November 30 will help shape whether Saskatchewan can capitalize on this unprecedented opportunity and lead the world in these globally important areas of nuclear medicine and cutting-edge material science. All this is based upon the idea that having a reactor that produces isotopes would be the nucleus of having a center here on the campus. But Dr. Florizone, it's interesting that he's turned around in his own thinking, because his report, which in the newspaper says, in the short term there's several challenges for Saskatchewan pursuing nuclear power. And he outlines all of these, including public opinion, but the most important ones are the cost. That the federal government has subsidized the medical isotope research reactors, the Maple reactors in Chalk River for a number of years, 6 or 7 years, spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they found out, to their surprise, that AECL didn't know how to work out how to make a reactor because the reactor was responding the opposite way to what they expected. So all that money has gone down the drain. That was supposed to replace the old, aging Chalk River reactor, which was the main supplier of quite a lot of the world's isotopes. But we don't need to have a nuclear reactor to have isotopes. There are all kinds of other ways of making them. Accelerated electrons, cyclotrons, and so on can do this just as efficiently and much more quickly than trying to build another reactor or a reactor that doesn't work. One of the other things that annoys me as a person who worked at the university for 40 years is that this is a spearheaded, multidisciplinary kind of response. In my experience of multidisciplinary activity at the university is they never work, because most disciplines keep wanting to have their own way with things, and it's very difficult to keep a cohesive approach to developing some kind of research policy on the university where many disciplines are involved. I think that we have to look much more carefully. I don't know what the outcome of this response of asking money from the government, the federal government, is going to be, but it's obviously, as Dr. Penner said, is just the beginning of a general approach to keep the uranium industry going. And one of the things that saddens me is that, with uranium in particular, is that many people don't realize that the Canadian CANDU reactors are extremely inefficient. Of all the uranium that's mined in Saskatchewan that goes to the use of reactors in Canada, 92% of the uranium never gets used. The fuel bundles become toxic after a certain period of use, so that only about 8% of the uranium is actually broken down and produces energy. All the rest of that uranium, 92% of it, goes into waste. So we now have in Canada the second largest nuclear waste in the world, and we're at the same time mining uranium on a large scale, messing up the north. All of this to make a very inefficient approach to creating energy. So people don't realize these things about the uranium industry. They think it's producing a lot of money for the province. It doesn't really produce very much in terms of royalties. Most of the money goes somewhere else. So the whole idea of the uranium industry, and I also get annoyed when people say the uranium cycle, it's not a cycle, it's a chain. The chain begins with creating waste at the mine, creates waste in the fabrication of the fuel bundles and the use of the fuel bundles, and then the waste has to be stored somewhere. Nobody knows how to store their waste. Every country in the world has been trying to do it. Canada spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to decide how to do it, and the process is going on at the present time to try to fulfill that idea, particularly putting Saskatchewan on the map again as a potential waste repository for nuclear waste. So the whole uranium chain produces waste. And I'm not mentioning nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons produce waste, of course, as well. So there's really nothing that comes out of the uranium cycle, so-called, which is really a chain. Nothing is recycled. There is absolutely nothing about recycling in the uranium chain. So we don't really need it. People in Saskatchewan are quite well aware of that, even after they've been bombarded with ideas that we will progress and become rich. The people have spoken in the last year that we do not want any further nuclear development in the province. So I think I've said enough. Thank you.